There's a bit of a stigma in reaching out to someone saying, hey, can you help me be better? We're all comfortable going to a personal trainer.
I made this point yesterday. If your car breaks, you're not going to attempt to fix it yourself unless you're a mechanic. You go to a mechanic and you get the help you need. What's the difference with your money?
Generally, it's people that feel most confident in their ability to spot a scam who are the ones that are scammed. And we think that could be playing into this element of shame.
These aren't insignificant sums, right? They're big chunks of money.
No, these ranged from, I think the lowest was about 12,000 to the highest, I think, was over 55.
Welcome to Where's My Money? One man, $1 million of debt, one podcast to find a way out.
Hi, I'm Reagan White, and yeah, I've still got $1 million worth of debt. It's all good though. I've got a plan. I don't lose sleep over money anymore, and every week that goes by, my chats with experts on this very podcast bring me one step closer to understanding the world of finances. If you haven't already chucked us a follow on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, do it, and DM us if you've got any topics you want us to hit or experts that you want me to chat to, because I will. A while ago, I got scammed, and I know for a fact I am not alone. So I'm going to tell the story, share a scam story from a listener, and figure out what rights we actually have in New Zealand when we do get scammed. Let's get into it. Yeah, man, I totally got scammed. About 18 months ago, a debt collector turned up at my door claiming I owed some money, and that I had to call an 0800 number with a case number to try and sort out the money I apparently owed. Even this seemed like a scam, but eager to find out what in the actual fuck was going on, I played ball. I called the number to find out that I owed 1NZ, back then called Vodafone, roughly $2,000. I started spiraling. That cold sweat crept over me. $2,000 that you don't have or you haven't budgeted for to pay off a debt you didn't know you had as a spicy meatball to swallow. But as I started to analyse it, it dawned on me. I'd never had internet with Vodafone. I've had a work phone account for close to a decade, and we don't have a home phone. I'd been scammed. Somebody had stolen my identity, set up an account under my name with my actual details, and racked up $2,000 worth of fees that I was seemingly now liable for. What a dog act. Later in the app, I'll talk to the guy in charge of the debt management company that turned up at my doorstep, because I'm keen to share his company's vision of changing the reputation that debt collectors have. Because if you're imagining some heavy in a leather jacket with some sunnies on that kind of resembles Dog the Bounty Hunter, same. I'll also chat with Consumer NZ to figure out what kind of rights we have in the event of being scammed. First up though, Chris Turnbull is a Where's My Money listener who reached out and wanted to share his story about being scammed, joining forces with other scammees and fighting back. This is Chris's story.
We live in a 1950s wooden house in the outskirts of Wellington, and we had we had wooden framed windows that leaked a bit and getting a bit rotten around the edges, so we decided to get some double glazing.
Is that a retrofit situation, or are you replacing them all?
Well, the banks came out with these eco loans, the low interest short term mortgage top ups.
Yeah.
And so we decided to go for the full replacement.
Cool.
Especially as the frames were starting to rot.
Yeah, fair enough.
So we got a couple of companies in to give us quotes, and decided to go with this one company, Green Innovations from Palmerston North. Everything seemed to go okay to start with. They were pretty much exactly the same as everybody else. They wanted their 50% deposit, same as all the other companies.
Pretty standard, yeah.
So it's pretty standard. And the second payment was a 30% deposit, 30% progress payment once the windows had been manufactured, and then the final 20% once the job was done. That was the payment arrangement.
And did that kind of seem comparable to the other companies as well?
Yeah. So that's pretty much the same industry standard.
Yeah.
As far as we could tell. So we went ahead, paid our $24,000 deposit. After 3 months, we got a email saying the windows have been made, so it's time for the 30% the 30% progress payment, which was another 14 odd grand, which we paid.
And at this point, there's no weird stuff. You trust them, you believe them, you flick the money over, yeah?
Yeah. Well, we'd done a bit of due diligence beforehand. We checked out the company. They had been running for 3 or 4 years. They had some 4 and 5 star reviews on Google reviews, so everything looked kosher.
Yeah.
Then the excuses started to come. Because we needed some window boxes removed from the first floor, needed a builder, and his time was a bit busy, so had to wait. Another couple of weeks. What's going on? Problem with installers. Okay. Then next email, no reply. Phone calls, no reply. Started getting a bit worried. Noticed his wife was the director of the company, so I Facebook stalked her and messaged her and got a reply.
Stuff.
Brilliant. So, yeah, there was a couple more excuses. Promises made, brilliant. Sit back. Then again, nothing. Then we noticed another member on Facebook, local community. My wife noticed a message from her, same company, Green Innovations. Any issues with them? So we reached out to that person. She was going through the exact same thing, and another person reached out to them. So then we know there's 3 of us in the area.
Whoa. So this is all happening at the same time as well, same timeline.
This is all happening at the same time.
Oh dear.
So talking to these other 2, they had discovered that the windows were actually being assembled in Christchurch, another company.
Right.
So I reached out to them as well. And it was a case of, another one. What's your name? Yep, we'll check your name. Yep, you're on the list. Okay, there's about 15 of you on the list at the moment. You're definitely there. They're working through the job slowly. They'll get to you. Another few days go by. Again, nothing. Things are starting to get a bit more. I put a Google review up. I noticed a new Google review had appeared, a 1 star.
Yeah.
Watch out, scam company. So I put up a Google review myself, 1 star. We're having issues, promises made, no communication. If you're in the same boat, let me know. And I left a cookie on how to find me.
Nice.
Within 2 days, I think another couple of people have reached out to me through that.
Holy moly.
I went back to the supplier with sort of this information, and the supplier had reached out to the owner of the company. He was now being ghosted. The supplier was now being ghosted by the company, but he knew where to find him, so he went off and had a face-to-face with him. And yeah, the wheels had fallen off. The company's in trouble. Sorry. More and more people started reaching out. People who knew people who had managed to meet more people had all joined up.
This is the most New Zealand situation ever, where everyone just knows everyone. So, you give it a few weeks and you can basically track down every single person who's ever come across these people.
Yeah. So we now had, the group had grown to about 14, 15 people.
Wow.
Most of us in the Wellington region, with 3 or 4 in Palmerston North.
Yeah.
I decided, well, we need to get together and share our information, because people are finding out bits and pieces and you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So I organised a meeting with everybody in Johnsonville and set up a Zoom call for those who couldn't make it. And I think on the night there was about 12 of us, or sort of managed to get together, or 12 groups.
Scammies, anonymous.
Yeah. And the story was pretty much the same. Everybody, about half of us had paid these progress payments. The rest had just paid the initial deposits.
You say just the deposits, but these aren't insignificant sums, right? They're big chunks of
money.
No,
these ranged from, I think the lowest was about 12,000 to the highest, I think, was over 55.
So let's pause and recap. More than $200,000 had vanished. Victims were told to take civil action, meaning they'd have to spend even more money just to chase what they'd already lost. And turns out the guy behind it all was a discharged bankrupt, with his wife fronting the company to dodge the rules. That's when the group banded together, sharing info, tracking him down, even confronting him at his home. He claimed the money was gone, the business had folded, yet was still out there quoting for new jobs. This wasn't just bad luck, it was a classic Ponzi setup, and it was about to unravel. Well, kind of.
As a group, we told each other our police report numbers. So we all started new police reports, and when the first person did one, they told the group their police report number. The next person did their police report referencing that number. The next one referencing those two numbers, then the referencing the three numbers. So we built a chain
It's like
of
a web.
police reports
Yeah.
for the police. Again, as individuals, these would have all got lost and all written off as just civil matters. But us building this chain, so pointing out these progress payments, and we had confirmation from the supplier that none of these orders had been paid for. They had been added to a list, but he was only paying for the one job that he was working on at a time.
Right.
So the deposits were just going to, the ether.
Yeah.
So there's the fraud. So we had managed to finally put it together for the police that he was committing fraud. That was finally picked up by the police in Wellington and in Palmerston North. They both picked it up and combined it to one Palmerston North officer. And he was charged with 12 counts of obtaining by deception, even though I think there were 20. I think on the list there's 22 victims, so not everybody either made the case.
Yeah.
He's pled guilty to the 7 of us that he made the progress payments, took the progress payments from. The other 5 charges have been dropped. So
have you seen any money come back?
He's made a promise to pay back $100 a week to the 7 of us who he's pled guilty to. That's just over $300,000, 60 years at $100 a week.
That's a dog act. Is there any protection for you guys? Like, was there any other kind of? There's nothing.
No,
you're basically
nothing.
not seeing your money back.
No.
We talk a lot about the emotions that can come with money, and I was keen to understand how this had taken a toll on Chris and his relationship.
It's been going on for 2 years now. When I first started to realize there's a chance that this money is gone, I mean, initially, because I paid the progress payment, I told myself that at least the windows are there. Worst case, I could drive up to Palmy, hire a van and chuck the windows in the back
and pay someone else to whack them in.
That's what I was thinking at the beginning. But as it became clear that there were no windows, there was no money, I just couldn't sort of think of anything else for a while. I wasn't sleeping. I think it went for weeks. I didn't get a full night's sleep for weeks. At first, I didn't tell my wife. I wanted to get all the information and find out, but
sometimes in our relationships, right, you often don't want to present the problem. You kind of want to come with the problem and a solution, so at least you're not doubling the stress.
Exactly. After a couple of days of this just sitting on me, I told her, look, I think we've been ripped off here. I think we've lost our money, and it was almost 40 grand at that point.
How did she react?
Again, she was sort of shocked and sort of worried, and I don't know. It's sort of, she's able to see the bright future much easier than I. I mean, she's the pessimist of the relationship. I'm the other way around.
Other way around, yeah.
Yeah.
So she managed to find some kind of silver lining.
Yeah.
What was the silver lining? You're 40K in the hole and your windows still leak.
The supplier helped us out there. NK Windows in Christchurch was the supplier. They came back and offered the group a fairly decent discount on getting the stuff done.
Awesome.
I mean, we still had to pay out, an extra 30 grand or so.
Yeah.
But he finished the job for us.
And I guess there's a silver lining there, right? This is the flip side of something shitty happening in New Zealand, is that as Kiwis, we kind of want to get in behind each other and a company to say that they'll give you a decent discount. Obviously, it's not their fault. So to take on that kind of cost, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And Peter Broad, lawyer, Auckland-based lawyer, he's the guy who went pro bono with us.
Nice.
He managed to sort out the paperwork to force Green Innovations into taking action, and they went into voluntary liquidation.
What advice would you have for someone who, we'll go from the start, if you've got a bunch of work that you're about to do to your house, or you're about to invest a decent chunk of money in something, what advice would you give to someone before they even start the journey?
It's well, we did all the checks, the Google reviews and stuff. Finding the company director was the wife of the guy running it. That was a red flag we probably should have picked up.
But that's a tricky one, because there's a lot of husband-wife companies in New Zealand, right? Like mum, dad, small to medium enterprises who want to earn a living. One person's the director. It's probably not that weird. I don't know if you missed that red flag per se, because that doesn't seem that out of the ordinary.
Yeah. He was a director of another company beforehand, which failed.
Yeah.
Hence his bankruptcy. But it was, I don't think it was sort of easy to spot. There were several satisfied customers. He had managed to carry this Ponzi plan on for 3-4 years, and managed to complete several jobs and had satisfied customers. It was just unfortunate that we were on the bottom of this pyramid when it collapsed.
Yeah, totally. For someone who's in that situation now, they've found themselves without their cash, or without the product they've paid for because of a scam, some kind of scheme, some kind of dog act by business that's trying to take your money. What advice would you have someone who's kind of in that shitty situation now?
Reach out. You're not alone. You're not in this boat on your own. Find the other people in the lifeboat. Get together, help each other. A lone voice is ignored. Don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid. Even smart people make mistakes. It's only as a group that we managed to fight this guy and get him to face some kind of justice. Standing out on our own, he would have got away with it, and he would probably be starting up his next business to do it all over again. Yeah,
it's kind of like an addiction, it seems, with some of these sketchy business owners. They probably get a rush from taking people's money, and who knows what he was doing behind the scenes to enjoy his life with all your cash, whether it was paying off debt or whether it was buying boats and going on holidays, who knows? And you probably will never know. It's a real shame Fair Go doesn't exist anymore, because this would have been an absolute sitter for a Fair Go episode.
Yes, yeah. Yep.
And maybe that's the next iteration of the podcast. Where's My Money can become a doorstepping consumer rights pod. And if that happens, I'll need your advice, because it sounds like you're the guy to take on the job. Chris, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for sharing your story. I'm sorry that the outcome wasn't exactly what you wanted. But like I said, I am stoked there are businesses and lawyers and liquidators out there that wanted to be on your side. That is a silver lining to take away from it, isn't it? Chris was really keen to shout out some people that had helped him and his extended group of scammed customers. Peter Broad, the lawyer, and Pritesh Patel, the liquidator. I definitely feel like I'm channeling my inner Kevin Milne in this episode. By sharing his story, I'm hoping we might end up helping some listeners who have been scammed and need a bit of guidance. During my experience with being scammed and dealing with the debt management company that turned up at my house, I realized I was very, very lucky to be dealing with a new kind of debt collector. Debt managers are focused on ethical, customer-focused debt management, and their big boss, Mark Francis, joins me now to talk about it. Well, Mark, I think there's a bit of fear around debt collectors and the idea of someone coming to collect your debt. It's very, Dog the bounty hunter. Do people misunderstand what you actually do you think?
Oh, very much so, especially the end of the market we're in, where they may know debt collectors to be very transactional and not concerned about their social impact. What we did was we sort of approached it completely different, and that yes, we're there to recover money for goods and services, but we really care about that social impact, and the customer's perspective is taken into account in every step.
Okay, so should we compare the old model versus what you were trying to do at Debt Managers? Because I think the misunderstanding probably comes from what was the truth back in the day of a heavy turning up at your house, right?
Yeah. And I look, it's not so much an old model; it's still in play. We see it still in play, but we're holding true to our values, which is, to have that consideration of the customer. Once upon a time, it was, as I said, transactional. It was try and collect as much money as quickly as possible. Full stop. We're still trying to recover funds in such a way that the customer is not negatively impacted by the outcome. What does that mean? It means, look, we don't want customers going out without heating or food or all these basic essentials that are human rights.
Wow, that's cool. So what actually happens when a debt gets handed over to debt managers? What is that process and how does it all roll out?
Sure. So we purchase debt. So we buy the debt. So we're the S&E. So the debt's now owed by us. So we have that luxury of not needing to recover the money in a short time like a debt collection agency that's working on behalf of.
Okay.
So there's legal requirements in terms of notices of assignments. Then we actually use a platform from the United Kingdom called Tell Joe that if the customer engages, it attempts to ascertain from them where they are in terms of wellness. Do they have vulnerability issues that are stopping them from making a payment? And then we run through a series of emails, texts, phone calls. And then one of our points of difference is we actually visit people. And before anyone sort of takes umbrage at that the visit is this scary guy turning up, we actually get a better response from our customers in terms of our NPS score from face to face. We all know, and there's cultural perspectives and there's all sorts of things, that face to face there's definitely an understanding of where the person is at. So we believe that by visiting people, we can understand the reasons for not paying, we can identify vulnerability, we can identify economic harm, and we're in an environment that the customer is comfortable in. It's their doorstep. They can choose to answer the door or not.
It's on their territory. So, it's not an intimidation tactic by any stretch.
No, not at all. There's a guy who turns up smiling and says, "Hey, what's wrong? Is there a reason it hasn't been paid? Is there something I don't know?" See, we have to take into account there's people that are digitally excluded that may not have got the emails. They may have lost their phone and have no access. There may be people who are not in a position because of their vulnerability issue, their wellness need, to feel confident to phone an 0800 number and speak to somebody.
Yeah, well, as we know, there's guilt attached to money every day, and that's not even just owing money, that's how much money you have or you don't have, or comparing yourselves to other people. So I think that probably extends to this, where they know that even if they do know they're in a state where they owe some money, there's that shame, that guilt, and they probably don't want to reach out and get it sorted. We put our head in the sand sometimes. Yeah,
look, the research coming out is that you're 3 times more likely to develop a mental health issue if you have unmanageable debt. You're 50% less likely to respond to treatment. So we've got people sitting at home with unmanageable debt that don't know where to go. There's a stigma around having debt. There's a sense that you've failed. So what we tried to do was say, hey, no, it's okay. We all have unmanageable debt at some stage. Well, most of us do. Let's just talk about it. And by talking about it and putting it on the table and identifying it, we'll address the things that are stopping you from making payment, whatever they might be.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you'd be willing to, if someone needs that assistance, they can reach out to someone, like our sponsors, Enable Me, who can build together a financial strategy that can incorporate the debt and get it sorted, eh?
Yeah, well, we, as part of our strategy, and this is where we've evolved from that debt collection model, part of our strategy is to refer you constantly to financial mentors who may be able to act on your behalf, who may be able to share with us that you're, for example, a victim of economic abuse that we didn't know, which in that case we'd write the debt off. So it's all about positive transformation for the customer, and not seeing a good customer with bad debt being a bad person.
Yeah,
you're still
totally.
a good person. You're still a good person. You've just got a bit of bad debt.
Well, what's the most common form of debt that you're seeing, like in 2025? Is there a...
We purchase a variety of debts, so I couldn't say what's what we're noticing. One of the things I'm noticing is there tends to be there's a bit of a creep coming through where we're seeing a lot of people who you wouldn't assume had bad debt becoming our customers. And what does that mean? There's actually a little bit more stigma attached to it because they feel very embarrassed. They're having to talk to somebody like me. So, there's this reassurance piece. Hey, Reagan, if it was you, don't worry about it. These things happen. You lost your job or you're still overcoming whatever happened in COVID. Let's just talk about it.
Yeah. Do you think there is a little bit of, when it comes to those people, a little bit of the keeping up with the Joneses mentality where they're hyper proud of their image that they want to uphold, that it turns out behind the scenes things are crumbling a little bit?
Oh, definitely. And that's for everybody. We're all conditioned in some way to be the same, and we're all possibly not as good with our finances as we should be. And I think that's, again, there's a bit of a stigma in reaching out to someone saying, hey, can you help me be better? We're all comfortable going to a personal trainer, but not a personal trainer for our balance sheet.
I made this point yesterday. If your car breaks, you're not going to attempt to fix it yourself unless you're a mechanic. You go to a mechanic and you get the help you need. What's the difference with your money?
Yeah, exactly. Like I've been in this industry for 30 years. I get an allowance from my wife. It's still, I'm not that good. So there's an understanding of this.
Totally. Oh, that's awesome. So in my situation, which is what led us to talking, was I got scammed and someone basically stole my identity and racked up $2,000 worth of cell phone bills. How often are you coming across this in your line of work? Is it kind of increasingly common?
No, from my perspective, it's probably decreasingly. What we're seeing is our vendors, the providers of goods and services and loans, are using more and more biometric checking at contract origination. So it is becoming less and less. I think in fairness to all of us, though, the people that would sort of execute those crimes are getting cleverer as well. And I think that's why it's great that, you're bringing up these topics so we all keep them, front of brain and we think about them more, talk about them.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no, I didn't even know about it. So, and it made me think, how many people has this happened to where they literally don't even know until someone from a debt collection organization's turned up at their doorstep. I wasn't getting phone calls or texts or reminders or, my account wasn't frozen because I didn't have an account. It was just out of the blue.
No, definitely. And then the email address wasn't going to you, so you were unaware. And
Totally.
And in that case, we actually, even though you weren't our customer, we actually solved the problem for you.
Yeah,
because
and
you were unaware. Yeah,
credit to you guys. You were super helpful between you guys dealing with the police. It was all easy as to deal with, but it is still and so nerve wracking when you go, am I gonna shit? I've got $2,000 that I have to find to pay off something that wasn't even mine, and that fear of someone not believing you, that was real for sure.
Definitely, and this comes back to though our customers. We have to stop and believe them and listen to their story. Where 10, 20 years ago, and even, as I said today, some organisations will just not believe you.
Yeah.
I have a contract in your name, you owe the money.
Yeah, and that's as far as it goes, pay up.
Yep. But if you're conscious of your social impact and you're actually trying to show society that you have value, you stop and listen and consider perspectives and just have a wider horizon in this debt recovery piece.
That's awesome. You certainly found a gap in the market because, like we've discussed, the image of a debt collector was intimidating and scary, and I like that you're kind of flipping that on its head. So, wrapping up, have you got any advice for someone who maybe they have actually racked up a bit of debt and there's a letter sitting on the bench, they're kind of ignoring it, they feel overwhelmed or embarrassed? What's your advice to them?
Look, in short, speak up. But if you're unable, do seek help from a financial mentor in New Zealand or a financial counsellor here in Australia. These people are trained, they're free, they're confidential. They'll basically give you an umbrella that'll protect you from having conversations that you might find uncomfortable. And I think behind that is realise it's likely not your fault. It's life happens to people, and if you speak up and complain your situation, you'll be well heard by the more professional organisations.
Such as yourself.
Well, I didn't throw my 0800 number in, I could have.
Hey, you can throw the 0800
No,
number
no,
in because I mean, I like what you're doing, and I think it's well worth you promoting yourself because, like I said, you made it super easy to fix a problem I had. So say the 0800 number. Do it, man.
No, I don't know what I'm hearing. But mate, just as an aside, if you ever want to go out with one of the guys and look, I'm accountable and I'm transparent. So, we offer ride-alongs with anyone that wants to come out. Because by doing that, we don't stray back to the old ways.
Okay, so if you've been scammed or equally you haven't been scammed, but you found yourself in a bit of debt that's got out of control, there are people out there that want to help you. Being honest with yourself about your situation seems critical. Another organisation that is out there to help us is Consumer NZ. I invited Jessica on the pod to hit me with some ways we can stay safe from scammers and what our rights are when we do fall victim to that dodgy-looking Scrabble game on Facebook or other less specific scam methods.
So with the scams and your rights, it really depends on how you've been scammed and the complete situation around it. So there are a couple of different kinds. There's an unauthorized and there's authorized. Unauthorized would be something like your bank account is hacked, you've had absolutely nothing to do with that, or your wallet is stolen.
Yeah.
And so somebody's got your details and they've gone on a shopping spree. Under the New Zealand Banking Code of Practice right now, chances are you're going to be covered for that kind of loss. The other is called an authorized payment scam. So that would be where you are tricked into giving your details away or tricked into making a payment for something that's dodgy. And right now, if you are the victim of an authorized push payment scam, chances are you are not covered. And that's something that happens a lot, sadly, in this country.
Well, those are two scenarios we've covered in this episode. So mine was unauthorized. My identity was stolen. Someone set up an account under my name and racked up $2,000 worth of Vodafone account fees. Whereas Chris, our listener who told his story, he was paying for double glazing to be retrofitted into his house, paid the deposit, paid the progress fee, and saw no windows.
Horrendous. And sadly, it's so common. And that's something we've been tracking. As far as we were concerned, there was no understanding of how prevalent scams were in New Zealand because they're underreported. So what we wanted to know was actually how many people are losing money to scams.
Yeah.
We've been tracking this for about 18 months. We're looking at about 11% of households has lost money to a scammer. So we take that to be in the region of 185,000 households, which is massive.
That's 1 in 10, right? That's so many people being affected by dishonesty and it's yucky. What should people do first? Like you're saying that they're underreported. Who do they report it to? And does that help them get their money back if there is a chance of it?
That's a great question. And when we've got a scam campaign out in market at the moment, and one of the first things that I wanted to do is try and make it simple for people to understand how to go. I wanted to get it on a page. It's too hard. You can't. It's so complicated. So the best piece of advice for anybody listening, watching is tell your bank. And the faster you act, the more likely you are to be able to get hopefully some of your money back. Again, it depends on the authorized versus unauthorized, but talk to your bank and they will be able to tell you not only the process from their end, but also who else you should report to.
Yeah.
Because it depends whether it was a text message, whether it's online, whether it's a phone call, whether it's an online, like a Facebook marketplace thing. All of these different things dictate who you should be reporting to. Yeah. And it really is a minefield. So call your bank in the first instance.
So there's no one size fits all. You mentioned Trade Me and Facebook Marketplace. Are banks or those platforms responsible for reimbursing people who have lost money through scams?
It sounds like such a cop-out answer, but it's a real grey area. And so there was an announcement made by the Banking Association back in April that they are going to start reimbursing for some of these authorised scams from December this year, which on the face of it is a massive win. This is something that we've been calling for. But there's a caveat there, and that's online marketplaces are not going to be covered. And we think so many scams originate from online marketplaces. I've been talking to advocates in the UK and they think it's a third of scams there are coming from Facebook Marketplace.
Whoa.
So if we take that out of the mix here, that's still going to be a heck of a lot of people not being reimbursed.
I guess
so something that we're calling for. Go on, sorry.
Trade Me is a good platform because, they're a responsible kind of bunch of people and they've set up good frameworks around sales and being a responsible member of that. But Facebook Marketplace is the Wild West.
That's exactly what we call it. We call it the Wild West. And so theoretically, you should have more protections under Trade Me. But I think we're getting to the point where nothing is really safe, which is a consumer is a really awful place to be.
Well, scammers are getting smarter, right? Like it is harder to corner one part of the internet because the internet is just the world. Like it's a pretty hard thing to.
That's exactly right,
Yeah.
and that's something that we've been really careful in the way that we're trying to describe this. Is these are professional criminals that you're dealing with. It's not just like a chancer in a bedroom somewhere.
Yeah.
These are people who are trained to extract your money from you, and they're really good at it.
Totally. Okay, so what are some of the red flags that people should, look out for that are going to make them stop and think about handing over money before it's too late? Or even their personal info, not just the money. Yeah,
no, that's a good point. It's all the above. So things that are time limited. So if you're made if something's too good to be true, I hate this adage, but there's something in it. So if there's an option that looks like, oh my God, I've got to have this, be aware.
Yeah.
It's so obvious, but we do it, especially when we're busy. Never click on links. Until recently, banks were even sending out links in text messages. And so that was putting us at risk. We were trusting links. Don't. Very rarely trust a link. Navigate to where you want to be online yourself. Yeah, these pressure tactics, we call them. So if it's Act Now, discount codes, unless it's somewhere that you really trust, be wary of those. If you get an unsolicited phone call, even if it sounds like your bank, it sounds like an exact script that you've heard before from your bank. I've spoken to scam victims who have been scammed, obviously. And then they get another call a month later that sounds exactly like the call that they had when they were scammed. And so they trust it.
Wow.
Rescamming in New Zealand is massive. And so if you've been a victim of a scam, there's a high likelihood you will be scammed again, which is horrific. So just always being really, really cautious. So yeah, time pressure, unsolicited calls, emails, discount codes, things that seem too good to be true. Just sadly, be wary of everything.
And in a world of AI, that, the pretending to be your bank kind of thing is so easy to pull off now.
It's really awful. I've even spoken to somebody who said to me, I knew not to give them my password or my username, but they asked me the second and third letter of my security question. He gave them it. They were in his account. So this scammer had been able to glean all the other information. They were the missing pieces.
Oh my God.
And they got him. Yeah.
It sounds so easy, but of course, like in the moment, you want to trust people. We're built to trust people. And I guess that's why
of course we are.
It can be so embarrassing and there's a lot of shame associated with this because of the fact that people feel so dumb when they've fallen for something. But it is so easy to fall into these traps. Is it important that you kind of have to overlook your guilt and your shame and your embarrassment and still speak up and report it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as part of my role, I jovially refer to myself as the scam ambassador at Consumer New Zealand.
Great name.
This information and talking about it.
I love a pun.
Thank you. And I went to speak to a group of retired professionals in Wellington last year, just all around this, the work we do, but also how to avoid being scammed. The next day, I was scammed myself. And I instantly thought, what an idiot. And what I always say to people is never blame yourself.
No.
And, I fell foul of that. But they get you when you're busy.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it was. I was trying to do too many things at once. I thought I need to get my son this for his birthday. It was an amazing offer. I was like, oh, click the link. Didn't exist, money gone. And I think I reported it straight away and I was lucky I got my money back. But the shame is real. And there are certain demographics, certain communities who even more so feel that shame and maybe you won't just report it to the bank, but won't tell a family member or a friend, and that puts them even more at risk because it's not just the financial loss, it's the psychological, the social, the mental impact this has.
Yep.
It can't be underestimated.
Well,
and so I think,
and those things are all tied together. Your money, your self-worth is all tied into your confidence and your levels of guilt and shame around it. So it's no surprise that people kind of just try and hide it and move on from it. But losing money that you work so hard to earn really sucks.
Something that we found really fascinating through, like I said, we've been surveying for 18 months now. Generally, it's people that feel most confident in their ability to spot a scam who are the ones that are scammed. And we think that could be playing into this element of shame because people have this sense that I know what I'm doing, I'm bright, I'm savvy, and then they get caught out. And so it's kind of admitting it to themselves, but then to other people, you can see how that's a massive hurdle to overcome.
Totally.
Which makes us even more vulnerable.
Thank you so much for your time. I've really appreciated your insight, and you're going to add a lot to this episode. And I hope that people can glean some information from you, and remember that if you get scammed, it's not your fault. These people are professionals.
Absolutely not. Yeah, sad but true. Thanks for your time.
Yeah. A big thanks to Mark, Chris, and Jessica for opening our eyes to the world of scams. I've definitely learned a thing or two today. If you've been scammed or you think you've been scammed, it definitely pays to reach out. I'll see you in the next step, where I'll continue to be asking the question, where's my money?